Hello, and welcome back to Terry-ble TV. Right off the bat, for those of you who like my nerdy type projects, this one is not exactly that. But this project will allow me to work on other things much more efficiently and controlled. So it is a necessary step for my continued projects, some of which will have that nerdy flair you may be here for. I guarantee it. So I have a very small footprint when it comes to my available space to work. Very often I find myself cutting wood and doing all sorts of little odd jobs in any place I can find. On the washing machine, the dryer, the kitchen table, a couple of bricks in my knee, or sometimes I'll set up collapsible tables that I have that are not supposed to be workbenches, but they are what I have available and I can use them for a short amount of time. But ultimately, I ruin them. Cuts, paints, gouges, holes, and then I need to replace them. Not the smartest of avenues to take, and certainly not the most economical. I do have a workbench of sorts in my garage, but it's often just a catch-all for all sorts of things. It's not really big enough to use for what I would like to. Plus, it's not a garage workbench by any means by nature. It happens to be my first biomed tech bench I took upon leaving that particular job. And I tried to utilize it as a bench to have something of a garage workbench, but really just does not work. And frankly, it never really has. So I have been wanting to find some ideas to make a real workbench. Something mobile, bigger, and that I can also possibly integrate my mobile miter saw and portable table saw into, thus freeing up even more floor space I barely have in my garage, just to have some more free area. Looking through a lot of videos and ideas, I have settled upon getting my plans from Ben's DIY LLC. The workbench looks a little complicated, at least based on my ability and experience, but does seem doable at the same time. And I don't mind the challenge. I do believe that this bench will work for me, and thus this is where I will start my crusade in having a much better workable area for my needs. So let's go ahead, get started, and drill right into workbench. Well, unlike my other projects, this is actually something that is planned out. Usually I'll have a rough sketch of something I want to do and a prayer to get me through the whole project, but this time I actually have plans that are formed and laid out. I would love to record this project as if I had the brains to figure this out, but I surely do not. I'm sure I could have built something. In fact, I probably would have been able to build something decent. But for me, this is an important project. This is going to require actual know-how in the planning. I want this to last and to be good for me. So here we are. I'm sure I'll have to make some modifications for the exact needs that I have and the setup, and certainly to account for any corrections of errors that I am bound to make. Just at the start, I realize I will have to make some purchases. Here they're talking about something called castle joints. I'm sure I've heard of a castle joint, but I have no idea about the logistics behind them. I do know it's going to require a different type of blade, which specifically is a dado stack type blade. I'll certainly need more clamps. I'll need a router, which I already knew was only a matter of time before I had to get for the stuff that I do, but seems like this is the time. So these things and a few other odds and ends. Having and looking through these plans, what I think I will be doing is kind of treating this like a Lego set. Hey, what do you know? I actually squeezed in a nerdy reference.
You're a nerd!
Awesome. But I'll be cutting all the wood to length and marking them. So if I was to follow the plans as it stands, I'd be having to go back and forth between cutting and constructions. So this way I can keep that at a minimum. I'll have all the pieces ready and I'll just assemble it like a Lego set. All right, well, we ready? Time to get started. In no time at all, I realized I was going to need to modify my parts caddies. Currently, they just sit on the bench and are well within reach. This new bench, however, will be significantly deeper than my existing bench, meaning if I just want to stretch to grab some screws or hardware, it's going to be a long reach. So my new build will actually start as a new caddy build, with above bench slidable shelves so I can pull the tool caddies closer for when I need to access them. The install for them is just under the existing cabinets, up solid against the studs that I taped in green, and then supported with rods from those existing cabinets from above. Next, we'll be just organizing my tools and components for woodworking all together so that they at least look nice and are all accessible in a much more efficient way. Before I can start cutting, I need to make myself a jig for my 4x4s. Cutting the castle joints, I have to have these 4x4s up on their ends, and they're about 23 to 26 inches high, and it's going to be very difficult with any accuracy to get them cut right. So this jig will allow me to rest the 4x4 up against it and make smooth long cuts through it, as I'm going to need to make repeated ones. Now I need to make a sled so that I can have better control on the cross pieces that are the opposite ends of the castle joints. Using my new dado blade, I want this to be as safe as possible, and this will help me do that. One of the worst parts of any project is buying the wood. Sure, the cost sucks, but trying to find good pieces can be a pain, a real pain. So much of it is full of compounded sap or twisted and bent. I'm so very thankful I have my Lowe's buddy to help me make sure my wood is nice and dry, and not twisted and veering off to the right, and no splinters. Just a good bunch of workable lumber. For those of you who do not know, a 2x4, regardless of length, is not two things. One, looking from the end, it is not rectangular, as all four sides have a bevel. And two, they are not 2 inches by 4 inches as you would expect. Rather, they're 1.5 by 3.5 because reasons, I guess? Anyway, these lengths need to be trimmed down to 2 5/8 inches wide. So that's a trim I need to make of 1 5/8 inches for every board. But instead of just making one cut down the length to decrease the width, I'll cut that 1 5/8 in half and cut once down each side. This will give me the width I need and make the board with 4 crisp corners instead of the before mentioned beveled. I have all my lengths. Now I just need to make my last few castle joint notches. So earlier I mentioned buying a dado stack. What this essentially is instead of having one saw blade, it mimics having multiple right next to each other, allowing every pass over the table to go from a typical 1/8 inch wide cut to as much as 7/8. So when you have to make notches, it cuts down the amount of passes and time dramatically that it takes to cut these out, which now, with my newly constructed sled, I'll start to do. So here's a perfect example of what I meant earlier when I said I just had to use whatever I had available to have a workbench type environment. Here I've got a long span of wood that I need to have supported at the other end from where I am. So stacks of wood, collapsible table, anything I could do just to make it work. So that's why this workbench is happening. Here though, you can see how the dado stack is so good at taking out such large amounts of wood with each swipe. With just one blade, this would take a long time, which you were able to kind of see when I was doing the uprights earlier. Time to bring in the big guns. I knew this project was getting awfully big and was going to be too heavy really quick, so I asked my dad if he can come over and help me with it. Growing up, many of my Saturdays would start after the morning cartoons with me helping him in the garage. Mind you, much to my chagrin, as I had playing I had to get to, and sitting in a car pumping the brake pedal while he bled the brakes was not my idea of fun. When he would have wood projects, he would often construct what he was and just narrate what he was doing. I never once thought of it as teaching, and I never once thought of it as learning. Turns out, he taught me a lot, especially in the realm of making things. He always also had a project going, building displays for model trucks, his G-gauge train set he wrapped around the ceiling, building miniatures for that train set. Always something cooking. Here was the moment of truth. By all accounts, these should fit fine, but just like mushrooms, just because people say you can eat them, doesn't really mean they should be. We found these castle joints to be really tight, but figured they should be. Ultimately though, we felt the wood was stressing way too much, so a file sander came in handy to trim down the insides enough so they could slip down much better. Once we were comfortable with the fit, we then installed these braces as to keep the posts exactly at 90 degrees in both directions as the glue sat. This way we didn't end up with a post glued into place that was not at the perfect angle needed for these uprights. Follow the red circles. All right, so got everything set up today, hoping to get some good progress. So everything is nice and set up. Got the canopy because it's, according to the thermometer, about 630 degrees outside. Perfect May weather. So one of the complications we have that we're going to have to deal for is, if you see there's a hole because some genius named me measured correctly what it needed to be, put the line, but drew out the square on the bottom side, not the top side. So glued it, put the hole in so I knew where to hit from below, and glued it down. Did that on both sides. Thankfully, I found out just in time so I could take it off, and I can sand this down. I've sanded most of it off out, but I can get rid of that. Won't really see. I put a little wood putty. We're good. However, started looking at the pieces I have left, and this post and that post, the same thing happened. Measurement from the corner to here is correct. The line is correct, but the 4x4 was placed on the wrong side. So what that means is all the other pieces that are cut will not fit because those are in the wrong place. So I am going to have to take and carefully cut right along the plywood here to cut through the glue and the staples that are there so that we can move these 4 inches this way. So it's going to be, shouldn't be too bad, a little bit interesting, but that's how projects go. These two were definitely my fault. Caught myself. Those two, I'm blaming my dad, because one, he's not here, and I'm fairly certain this was his measurement. So birds of a feather, I suppose.
You lose.
So as it turns out, it's not going to be quite as easy as hoped. The cutting off the one with this blade, I was kind of concerned it was going to be a little wobbly, and it is, but it wasn't too far off, but it's enough to where the 4x4 would not sit straight as it needs to be. So want to have at least some meat on it on the bottom. So took off a 1/2 inch here, plate, glued and secured that in. It's not going to go anywhere once it's dry, and this is only going to be for support straight down, so I think it's going to be okay. If not, find out the first time I try to use it, but right now I think it's going to work just fine. Okay, time for a real life update. So, in essence, this thing is close to being done. Only a few more things got to do. There is a release here that I need to have access to. So this board needs to have a cutout. Then I can tack this down. Then the table saw area will be done. I take that back. I have to actually attach it to here. I've used it a couple times already and it does move around. So I will have to drill in and hold it steady, but that's okay. The top has to be sanded. Nice. I've sanded parts of it, did some fill in the little holes that we have. Got a little more sanding to do. The miter saw is pretty close to being done. It is attached. The hinges, I have one that opted to break on me, so that'll have to be replaced. But for all intents and purposes, it is complete. And that concludes another terrible project. I hope if you're listening or seeing me now, you were able to enjoy this video for what it was. I did have a great time building this workbench, and I actually have already used it once for a small project already. Very basic, but I built a nice tote rack for inside my storage area. As far as issues go, I had to rebuild the miter saw rotating platform. See, I was short a few 2x4s, and I did not trim them down when I purchased them to the width that I needed, that I had with all the other lengths of wood. So my miter saw fit on the sled, but I ultimately could not rotate the angle as I should have been able to. And because it was glued and screwed, so was I. So it had to be completely rebuilt. Also, there were a couple posts that were placed on the wrong side of the measurement line. which of course, whose fault it was is in no way relevant in any way. And even the best of builders sometimes just have moments, right? So my fault, Dad's fault, really, I mean, who cares, right? Speaking of, I'd like to thank my dad. I could not have done this in any sort of capacity if he had not come and helped out. So Dad, again, thank you. Also, in the somewhat near future, I'm planning on expanding out a little bit of my content and the things I want to present. Because I'm not always going to have a build on deck to video. So I hope this will be good news for all of you when this happens. Well, I do believe that's it. I do have another project and subsequent video coming very, very soon. And this one is about an 8.5 on the nerd scale. So if you like my builds for nerdy type stuff, it's going to be right up your smoke chute, I promise. And coming soon, I'm planning on expanding out a little bit of my content and the things I want to present, because I'm not always going to have a build on deck to video. So I hope this will be good news for you when it all happens. This will allow me to expand my channel into the TV type program that I wanted to. And with that, I want to thank you, as always, for tuning in. And say again, that if you're ever challenged with something new and it gives you pause, remember, you can figure out how to do anything in life that you want. All you have to do is stare at it long enough. So, till the next video.